Good morning. Happy Thursday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect.
Good morning, Bill.
Greetings.
I wanted to just flesh out a little bit more about that conversation that you had with Paul last week in respect to the RDLs and the pelvic outlet situation. Cool. So, just thinking on it a little bit, and there was a couple of things that jumped to front of mind over the course of the week, watching people move in the gym and looking at the way that the RDLs executed, and thinking that potentially for a sumo would be a better prospect for a narrow than a regular RDL if you're looking for something that's going to have less impact on relative motion. And I appreciate that obviously as soon as we start loading things, we're going to reduce any form of relative motion. But on quite a number of the people that we deal with, we're obviously trying to kind of get them stronger, but at the same time, treat maybe other restrictions that they might have. And so we have this balancing act between how do we increase strength in posterior chain, say for instance, without closing that pelvic outlet even further than what it might otherwise be constrained. And I thought that we don't get as much rearward translation in a sumo as we would in a normal RDL. Does that sort of make any sense to you in respect to the thought process attached to that?
A little bit. The thing you want to okay, let's clarify a very important point here. Okay. When we're having this discussion, we have already compared the entire population of the world 2 by 2, and we have found the world's most narrow and the world's most wide. Okay. But that's who we're comparing. Because if we can understand that, then we can better choose activities for normal folk. Okay. So we have to have that clarification. All right. So, because it's easier to see. So now we have an idea of what the physical structure looks like that we're talking about that will create interference under certain circumstances. So, by traditional means, there's certain shapes that need to be acquired in a Romanian deadlift exercise, right? Our world's greatest narrow will never be able to assume that position. It's not possible. It's not physically possible. You understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. So no matter how hard we try, right, their posterior lower representation will be biased towards a concentric. Doesn't mean that they can't move towards an eccentric position, but they'll never achieve the same capability as our world's greatest wide.
Yes.
So there's a limit. There's a limit to how far they can move in that direction, right? And so an exercise to select that would allow them to access the greatest degree of eccentric orientation and the greatest degree of nutation would be a better choice than try to force them into a standardized representation of an exercise because somebody said somewhere that everybody has to be able to do that. So your thought process is outstanding, okay? Because what you're doing is you're immediately putting them into a space where they do have access to be able to superimpose the internal rotation in that activity.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if I bring them too close together, right? And again, we're talking about world's greatest narrow. If I bring them these feet too close together, that space doesn't exist for them. Okay. Especially in a loaded situation. Yes. Right? Because the minute I start adding load, I have just taken away more and more space. So the orientation of say a sumo deadlift becomes a better choice. Now you have a second problem. Okay. Their starting position, probably not too bad. Then it becomes how far down can they go in that position? Okay. And so that becomes the big question mark. So you think about where they have internal rotation. Okay. So it's away from midline, and then they like if these are feet, right? Move the feet away from midline and then push the feet into the ground. There's where they've got some internal rotation. Okay. As they descend, there will be a point where they can no longer descend, continue to eccentrically orient the posterior outlet. And that's where the movement should stop. And then that's you as the coach going, that's about as far as you're going to go. Yeah. And so then this might be a rack pull or an elevated position for some people. There will be the exceptional few that might be able to get all the way to the floor. But the standard measure from the floor is the radius of a 20 kilogram plate. And that doesn't fit everyone, right? I would hazard to guess that if Dale and I go into the gym, I'm a little closer to the floor. Dale, how tall are you? I can't hear you, boss.
6'1".
Yeah, so Dale's a giant, right? And so I'm closer to the floor, so I might have a better shot. Like if we could turn Dale into a narrow, first of all, miracle upon miracles. Yeah, really. We would. Do you remember the press at the end of the Terminator, Dale?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd have to keep in that press, and then we'd probably still break it. But point being is, we still have to consider the excursion that they would have available to access this space. So your thought process is great because you're buying room, okay? But that doesn't immediately mean that we can take somebody to the floor. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you can't lift them in a limited range. It just means that you have, like, again, this is where you become the good coach, and you say, this is a better choice of exercise for you. Now, so now you start thinking, it's like, well, where am I going to do these? Where can I put this person in space? Where's their internal rotation? Where do they have it?
Well, it's away from midline.
Yes, but it's also somewhere else. There's two places. There's two places where their greatest access to internal rotation is going to be in two places.
Well, they're gonna have more chance of getting better internal rotation going straight down than they will
straight going back. Down. There you go.
Yeah.
You have now limited the number of exercises available, but you're also going to be a lot more accurate. So
I guess the
straight down's a big deal. Straight down's a big deal for narrows.
Well, see, the difficulty then becomes is that like, say, for instance, depending on the way in which they execute, for example, a squat, a narrow is obviously going to be biased to achieving a more vertical squat position than a wide would be.
Because they're supposed to, right?
They're supposed to, yeah. But the question is then is if we're looking at it from say a strength development perspective or a muscular development perspective, as we start to get more in line with a straight down squat, we're probably going to end up more quad based squat as opposed to into the posterior chain side of things.
Matt, you're killing me.
Come on.
I was doing so well, and now I'm all sick to my stomach. Okay. You said a few words in there. You mentioned strength. No. You mentioned strength and you mentioned muscular development. Okay. Here's one of the really cool things about hypertrophy. You don't need relative motion to develop hypertrophy.
No, you don't. But
if you want to keep them healthy,
yes.
Yeah.
So
if you want to be able to move well, and be comfortable and be happy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But see, this is one of the distinguishing characteristics of the bodybuilding side of training is that the exposure that the muscle experiences during the activities, okay, has a very low degree of relative motion available, because the excursion has to take place within the muscle tissue itself. Otherwise, it doesn't get exposed to the tension.
Yeah.
So remember, relative motion feels good. There's not tension in it, right? And tension is one of the primary signaling elements of hypertrophy.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you see the dilemma?
Yeah, I know it. I know it every day. That's
right. And so this is why, like when you look at the most extreme representations of muscular development, this is why they don't move well. Because they are programmed to not move well, because the type of training that they do is to actually reduce the amount of relative motion. So the muscle tissue is what becomes the relative motion, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I said, otherwise there's no tension on it. And if there's no tension on it, you don't develop big, strong muscles. That's the conflict, right?
Yes.
Like, again, it's a rare occasion. It's not impossible. It's a rare occasion, though, that you would get like a super heavyweight powerlifter that moves well.